In 2016, Shelby lost her beloved husband Antonio in a terrible motorcycle accident. Antonio, who had been Shelby's whole world, passed away suddenly, leaving her immersed in endless grief. Everything around Shelby reminded her of him, from Antonio's favorite jacket hanging on the rack to the sofa where they used to sit and watch movies together. Shelby tried to overcome the pain, but each passing day only seemed to deepen the wound. One day, while sorting through Antonio's belongings, Shelby found an old letter he had written to her. In the letter, Antonio talked about their dream of traveling around the world together, especially to Greece, where they planned to visit that summer. Seeing Antonio's loving words, Shelby couldn't help but cry. She decided to make their unfinished dream come true. Shelby planned a trip to Greece alone. She knew that this trip was not only to fulfill Antonio's dream, but also to find herself, to feel his presence one last time. She hoped that, by coming to this place, she could end the pain in her heart. When she set foot in Greece, Shelby felt the mystery of this place. The ancient streets, the stone temples hidden under the bright sunlight of the Mediterranean, made her feel like she was lost in another world. But along with that, a cold and uneasy feeling began to invade Shelby's mind. She felt like someone was watching her. Her every step was being monitored. But Shelby tried to dismiss those thoughts, thinking that she was just being too sensitive because of her unstable mood. One evening, when Shelby was sitting on the beach watching the sunset, she suddenly saw a man standing in the distance. That man stood with his back to her, but his appearance reminded Shelby of Antonio. She tried to look more closely, but the bright sunlight made it impossible to make out anything. The man stood still for a few seconds, then slowly turned around and walked towards the road leading up to town. Shelby felt her heart pounding. She couldn't explain this strange feeling. That evening, while walking around town, Shelby saw the man again. This time he was standing on the corner, staring at her. Shelby tried not to pay attention, but his gaze made her feel uneasy. When she turned back, the man was gone. Shelby reassured herself that it was just a coincidence, perhaps because she missed Antonio so much that she had hallucinated. But things didn't stop there. The next day, when Shelby went to visit the Parthenon, she saw the man again, this time in the distance, at the foot of the temple. She couldn't mistake it. His appearance, the way he stood, everything was too much like Antonio. Shelby felt like she was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. That night, Shelby returned to the hotel in a panic. She locked the door, closed the curtains, and tried not to think about what had happened. But her mind kept wandering back to that man. She wondered if Antonio was trying to contact her from the other world, or was it just her imagination? Around midnight, as Shelby lay in bed, she suddenly heard a strange noise outside her window. She listened, her heart pounding in her chest. The noise became clearer, as if someone was tapping on the window. Shelby slowly sat up, walking to the window with a growing fear. She pulled the curtains back and looked out. There was no one. But as she tried to close them, a cold hand suddenly touched hers from outside the window. Shelby screamed in horror and backed away. She didn't dare look out the window anymore, but she knew that someone was there, right outside her room. Shelby tried to calm down and called the police, but the signal was cut off abruptly. She felt like some force was preventing her from calling for help. In a panic, Shelby remembered a prayer she had read in an old book of Antonio's. She began to whisper prayers, hoping that this would protect her from the evil forces. Suddenly, the noise outside the window stopped. Shelby opened her eyes and saw that no one was standing there anymore. She breathed a sigh of relief, but knew that this was not the end. The next day, Shelby decided to leave Greece immediately. She couldn't bear to go through this horrible experience anymore. On the way to the airport, she kept looking around, afraid that the man would appear again. But fortunately, her flight went smoothly and Shelby returned home safely. However, when she returned home, Shelby discovered that everything was still wrong. She realized that even though she had left Greece, Antonio's ghost still haunted her. Every night she dreamed of that man, his cold eyes staring straight at her. She felt like she would never escape this haunting. Shelby knew that to escape this ghost, she needed to face her grief and accept the fact that Antonio was gone. But it wasn't easy. She kept wondering if the man was really Antonio or just a figment of her imagination. And if he was Antonio, what was he trying to tell her? A few weeks later, Shelby decided to return to Greece. This time she wanted to end things once and for all. When she arrived, Shelby went back to the places where she had seen the mysterious man, but he was nowhere to be seen. She felt like she was searching for a ghost that had disappeared. On the beach where she had first seen the man, Shelby sat down and wrote a letter to Antonio. She wrote about her love and longing, about the pain she had felt, and about her obsession with him. She prayed that if it really was Antonio, he would understand and let her go. Shelby folded the letter and dropped it into the ocean, hoping that the waves would carry her final words to Antonio. Back at the hotel, Shelby felt lighter. She knew she had done all she could. And at night, Shelby slept peacefully for the first time without dreaming about the mysterious man. Shelby's trip to Greece was not just a physical journey, but a spiritual one. She faced her deepest fears and finally found peace. But even so, Antonio would forever be a part of her life, no matter where she was. The Bahamas trip with my friends was an opportunity for me and my friends to enjoy the warm sunshine and clear blue waters. But no one expected that a trip that seemed perfect would turn into an unforgettable nightmare. The whole group of us were very excited when we boarded the cruise ship. In the early days, everything went smoothly. We enjoyed the parties on the ship, visited beautiful islets, and participated in water sports activities. That night, when the music was playing from the entertainment room of the ship, none of us thought that it would be a fateful night. I left my phone on the table in the lounge. When I returned after dinner, I found that the phone was no longer there. At first, I thought maybe I had forgotten to bring it, but when I searched everywhere and couldn't find it, I started to feel worried. I informed my friends and we checked the areas on the ship together. However, no one saw the phone. That evening, when we went to a beach party, I saw the strange man appear again. He stood far away, staring at me. I decided not to tell anyone about his appearance for fear of worrying everyone. However, when we returned to our room, I noticed that the door was open. I felt panicked when I realized that the stranger might have entered the room and rummaged through everything. We searched thoroughly but found no trace of intrusion. I decided to lock the door and call the ship's security team. The next evening, while I was sleeping, I was awakened by a strange noise. I opened the door and saw the strange man standing in front of the door. He did not say a word, just silently looked at me. The feeling of fear made me not know what to do. I retreated back into the room and locked the door. There was only one thought in my mind at that time. This cannot continue. The next morning, I decided to talk to the tour leader and report the incident. After checking the security cameras, we discovered that the man was actually one of the ship's staff, but there was no clear reason for his behavior. The security team took him away for inspection, and we did not see him again for the rest of the trip. Although the incident was over, the feeling of anxiety and fear haunted me for the rest of the trip. When I returned home, I had to change my phone number and be more careful about my safety. The Bahamas trip became a painful memory, not because of the beautiful beaches, but because of the nightmare I experienced.